prophetic preview number 3. Watch as it unfolds. David is the bully and Goliath is the hero. What do I mean? I mean, you will watch increasing hostility towards Israel. A Trump administration will come to Israel's aid. That isn't always a good thing. Israel, when isolated and independent of any outside help, more likely to rely on the God of the Torah, and at least, because there's been a pretty aggressive secular Jewish movement through the decades. So to see Israel at least return to Torah and at least call out to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you better believe God is able to work within that more than he's able to work in progressive Jews. Zechariah 12:3 tells you where it's all going. You got a picture of that in the past couple years. And it shall happen in that day that I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. All who would heave it away will surely be cut in pieces, though all nations of the earth are gathered against it. That's not hyperbole. There's coming a day when America will no longer come to Israel's aid. You saw pictures of that in the past 4 years. We said on the front porch to the media, to the world, we support Israel, and then made backroom deals with Iran. By the way, Israel's mortal enemy that funded all of the terrorist proxies that surrounded them. They call it the Ring of Fire, and openly says, like other Islamic states, that America is big Satan and Israel is little Satan. Why in the world would you give funding to your actual enemy? Unless you were being induced by an entirely different spirit, namely an antichrist spirit. Anti-Israel, or as we call it, anti-Semitic sentiment will continue to grow. This only aligns with biblical prophecy about Jerusalem having a central role in the end time scenario. It baffles my mind how many pastors, I'll just say Christians to be more general, can read the prophecies in the book of Daniel and Jeremiah and see where it's all going through and through, and even Jesus's discourse in Matthew 24 and 25, leading to Revelation, knowing that Israel and Jerusalem are on center stage, and yet try to do theological gymnastics in what is called replacement theology in replacing Israel with the church. Goodness gracious, if God is going to renege on his promise and covenant with Israel, then who the heck do I think I am that he wouldn't renege his promise and covenant with me? No, God is going to finish what he started. By the way, hostages have been in terror tunnels for the past 470 plus days. The recent deal to release prisoners, Palestinian, and hostages from all nations was a terrible deal. Now, make no mistake, getting life back, always a blessing. But you got to understand how cunning the devil is. Evil is very, as I'll say it, evil geniuses. They've learned along the way, if they're able to get one Israeli hostage, they can negotiate and get hundreds of their terror friends released. Why? Because Israel prides life and Palestine prides death. That doesn't mean that every life in both sides is indispensable and doesn't matter. No, God wants to save some Palestinians. He wants to save some Israelis. He wants to save more so that at that throne room around him, he's going to have all walks and all talks. But when you know the Bible, you know exactly where all of this is headed. 3 female Israelis were released this week. How many prisoners that were in prison for committing crimes? Some murder, many terroristic activities. How many? 90. 90 prisoners. How many in total? By deal end, we're in phase 1. It won't get to phase 3, mark my words. Probably about 1,500 plus Palestinian prisoners. 50% of them will likely go right back and become terrorists. 94 hostages remain. Get this. But only about 50 of them are alive. What kind of nonsense is that? We still have 94 hostages. 50 of them are dead. The world's narrative will continue to portray Israel as the villain, ignoring God's covenant promises. This is spiritual blindness. It fosters greater hostility. Now, please hear my heart. When I speak of Israel, I'm speaking of unredeemed Israel. That's how I've coined that term, unredeemed Israel. And the reason why I say unredeemed Israel, because not all of Israel will be saved. But those God has ordained in his prophetic timetable will one day be redeemed Israel, which is why Paul writes this in Romans 11, 25 to 27. For I do not desire, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, because it is a mystery, lest you should be wise in your own opinion, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. Translation, Israel's blind right now because God's gospel is working through the Gentile world. And there's a day when every Gentile that is ordained to be saved will seal the deal, and then God will turn his attention back to Israel. That is the time of Jacob's trouble. That is the final 7 years in Daniel's prophecy. I'll continue. And so all Israel, ordained Israel, will be saved. As it is written, the deliverer will come out of Zion, for he will turn away ungodliness from Jacob, for this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins. What's the forearming? Christian, we are called to not blindly support anyone or anything. We are called to biblically support what God supports. Biblically speaking, it means we are to pray for Israel. We are to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Psalm 122, verse 6. We are to be very well aware of God's prophetic timeline.